You guys may be seated. Can we make some noise for that worship band? Yeah. Huh. You have no idea how, I don't think you guys realize how big that is for our group, because we've never had it to where, like, I'm not even a part of it, and it's just mostly students leading, and that's exactly what I want to see. And man, it's like God's just doing it, and I'm just so happy to see that. It's just, man, it's such a blessing. Let me just pray over tonight. Is that okay if we just pray, and that we're all really respectful over tonight, because we all really need to be paying attention to what God's given me, and be respectful for other people. Heavenly Father, God, I just come to you right now, Lord, with, God, just an open heart, Lord. And God, I just pray that your words would just fill in my heart, Lord, and just come out of my mouth, God. And Lord, I pray that you would just speak to these students exactly what you want them to hear, Lord. And Father, I just pray that, my opinions and my own crazy things that I say would just step out of the way tonight, God. And Father, that you would just come. That, Father, that you would speak to every heart in this room. And God, that they would know that they are loved and that they are valued. And I pray all that in Jesus' name. Amen. Olivia Leah Yarger, infant daughter of Mitch and Amber Baker Yarger of Bethel, Ohio. Passed away Sunday, September 15th, 2019, at Bethesda North Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio. She was born September 15th, 2019, in Cincinnati, Ohio. In addition to her parents, Olivia is survived by one sister, Isabella Yarger, two brothers, Toby and Alexander Yarger. It is with great sadness that the family of Brandy Jade Murray announces her passing after a tremendous battle. On Wednesday, August 14th, 2019, Brandy Jade Murray, mother, daughter, granddaughter, and sister, passed away suddenly at her home, leaving us behind at only the age of 22. Miss Sadie L. Riggs, 15 of Bedford, took her own life on Thursday, September 19th, 2019. Sadie was born in Bedford on December 4th, 2003. She is survived by her father, Eric Riggs, and stepmother, Alicia Smith of Bedford, and her biological mother, Beverly Dodson Riggs of Hopewell, and by her motherly aunt, Sarah Smith, with whom she resided. Sadie was a member of Solid Rock Christian Fellowship Church in Bedford. She played softball and basketball and loved reading, drawing, and music. Sadie was a sweet and loving girl, and she will be greatly missed. In an effort to debunk the rumors about Sadie's death, we would like to share this information. Yes, Sadie took her own life. She hung herself. It's hard to fathom that someone so young could be so troubled. Sadie was seeking help. She was in counseling and taking medication. But it was all too much for a young soul to live with. If you will take a minute and look at Sadie's family dynamics, you will see that a large percent of the people in her life were not related to her by blood, but she was sent to us by God, who knew this child needed a family. Sadie had her tough life, and until a recent incident at school, she handled everything life served her. For a young lady so excited about going to high school, things sure went terribly wrong for her. For the bullies involved, please know that you were effective in making her feel worthless. That is all between you and God now, but please know that it's not too late to change your ways. Sadie's death has taken us to dark places. We will stick together and protect one another as we try to make sense of this tragic loss. To all the bullies out there, I just want you to know that as much as we despise your actions, never ever do we wish you to feel the paralyzing pain that engulfs our bodies. A pain so severe that it makes the simple act of breathing difficult, or the guilt that leaves us wondering what we could have done differently, or that struggle to remember the last words we spoke. Our hearts are beyond broken. Sadie, it was a privilege to have you in our lives, and we will always love you. May you find peace in the arms of God, and may we all be kind to one another. You see, there's one thing that all these people had in common. The little baby that died the day it was born, the 22-year-old mother, and the girl that took her own life. They all had one thing in common, is they all died. And the reality is that everyone in this room will die. We will all die one day. Every single one of us. There will come a day when each one of you will take your final breath here on this earth. When I was in college, I had this friend. His name was Sean, and I was pretty close to him. He was one of those friends that, just what was always fun to be around, and he was one of those guys that just loved nice cars and stuff like that, and he always went fast. Like that was just, if you just knew Sean, like he just loved to do that. He had a really awesome Mustang, and he loved, and another thing about him is he loved to play Call of Duty. I don't know anybody that was better at the game of Call of Duty than Sean. He would literally destroy us every time that we would play against him. And Sean loved going fast so much. He had his own racing four-wheeler. The guy even had his own racing lawnmower. I remember him like going through town, like doing wheelies through town, and doing burnouts on a lawnmower. Like that was just him. He just loved going fast. And I remember one day passing him in college. I hadn't seen him in a while, but one day I passed him in college. And I had always invited him to church, but he's like, I'll come one day. I'll come. And I just kept inviting him, but he never did come. And so one day I passed him in college. I hadn't seen him in a while. And when I passed him, he was carrying a motorcycle helmet as he passed. And I was like, hey, man, how's it going? He's like, oh, it's going really good. I just bought a new, what we call like a crotch rocket, which is a really fast motorcycle. And I was like, yeah, everything's going good. I was like, well, that's cool. I was like, well, just be careful on that. And we talked a little bit, and I was like, I remember the last thing I said to him was, hey, just be careful on that motorcycle. And the very next day, I was at home, and I was living with my parents at the time, and I got a call that Sean had swerved off the road, and he lost control of his motorcycle, and he hit straight into a telephone pole. He was wearing a helmet, but the impact snapped his neck, and he died instantly. And maybe you are here, and you've experienced death. Maybe you're here tonight and you have lost someone that's just really close to you. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a mom, or maybe it's a dad, maybe it's an aunt or an uncle, or maybe it's a grandparent. But the reality is that all of us are affected by death. And the thing about death is it just changes who you are. There's something about death that just, it changes us. And we always think that, oh man, I could have done better. I could have been a better friend. I could have been a better daughter. I could have been, what could I have done differently in that moment? And here's our key verse for tonight. It's Hebrews 9:27. It says, just as man is appointed to die once, and after that to face judgment. Do you know what the thing I've learned about death is in my life? I've lost a grandma, I've lost a grandpa, I've lost friends. But you know the thing that I've learned about death is that death just really doesn't care. Death doesn't care the way you feel. Death doesn't care that your heart is broken and ripped out of your chest. Death simply does not care because, as it says in that verse, it says we have an appointment with death. Each and every one of you in this room have an appointment. We are all appointed to die. And it's not just like an appointment, like a dentist appointment where you can be like, hey, you know what, I don't really want to die today, so can we change that for tomorrow? No. You have an appointment with death. It is appointed once to die And after that, the judgment. Some of you maybe wonder like what this counter is behind me here, right? Like, what is that thing? Like, what is this going off behind me? Well, since we've started this sermon, this is the amount of people that's died in the world, and that's the rate that people are dying right now. And I want you to know that there is almost 2 people every second that are dying right now. As we speak, that is people dying in the world. I want to share with you some things that death does not care about tonight. And I want to dive into those. Number 1 is this, is death doesn't care if your friend is a good person. Death does not care about your friends, but death does not care if your friend is a good person. Some of you maybe have some really nice friends, some friends that's like, man, they're just the nicest person. They're always kind. They never treat anybody badly. They never have a negative word come out of their mouth. They're just the nicest person ever. Like one of those people you just want to be around. They're just a joy to be around. But the reality is that death doesn't care. It doesn't care that how much they helped out their community. It doesn't care the difference that it made in the world. Death simply does not care. Death doesn't care that you're a good person. Death also doesn't care. Number 2, death doesn't care if your friends are living in sin. If your friends party all the time, if your friends sleep around, if your friends gossip, if your friends disobey their parents, if they dress in a provocative way to draw attention from guys, if they're doing drugs, if they fight people all the time, if they're constantly getting in trouble, death simply does not care that they're young and they're making dumb mistakes. Death does not care that your friends are living in sin. It's like, man, one day, you know, when I graduate school, after I get a job, I'm going to settle down. I'm going to get a family. I'm going to get my life right then. But death does not wait on that. Death doesn't care. Death doesn't care that your friends are living in sin. And death also doesn't care about your friends' addictions. You got friends in this room that, like people you know, that's like, man, they're addicted to pornography. You got friends that are addicted, like they're like, man, they're on drugs. They're addicted to alcohol. It's just crazy. But the reality is that death doesn't care that your friends are addicted. Death doesn't care about your friend's future. Maybe you got friends that's just like, man, they're the smartest one in my class. Like they're so smart. They're so amazing. Like they get A's in every single subject. Maybe you got friends that's like, man, they can jump out of the gym. They can dunk the ball. They can run super fast. They can jump super high. They're the fastest. They're the strongest. But you see, the reality is that, man, maybe they get a scholarship when they graduate high school. Man, they're going places. They're going D1, and it's amazing what they're going to get to do in their life. But you see, the reality is that death doesn't care about your friend's future. Maybe you got friends, maybe your friends, or maybe you got plans that maybe one day I'm going to settle down. One day I'm going to get married. One day I'm going to have a family. But you see, the reality is that death doesn't care. Death doesn't care about your friend's future. Death doesn't care about your friend's status either. You got friends that you look up to on social media because they got 5,000 followers on Instagram. Every single post they make, it's like you get jealous because it's like, man, every single thing that they post, it's like they're getting, I mean, it doesn't matter what they post. They're getting like easy, like 1,000 likes. Like, how's that possible? They're the most popular girl in school. They're the homecoming queens in your school. They're captain of the varsity team in your school. They're the girl that every other girl wants to look like. They're the guy that every other guy wants to be built like. But you see, the reality is that death doesn't care about your status. It doesn't care. Death doesn't care about your friend's status, and death also doesn't care about your friend's faith either. You got friends, they're like, man, they're just like this person like lives for Jesus. They have the best. Like when I look at their life, it's like, man, I wish I could be like them one day. I wish that I could, like, I look at like Lila and Kinsey up here and Keenan like leading worship and just how brave they are to do that and just how free they are in worship. I look at that and like, man, isn't that awesome how they serve Jesus? Maybe you got friends like that where it's like, man, they go to church all the time. Every time the doors open, they're there. They're huge in their church. They're all about Jesus. They're just an amazing Christian person. But you see, the reality is that death doesn't care if they're a Christian. Death also doesn't care if you're an atheist in this room. You don't believe in God. When you were a child, maybe your parent abused you. When you were a child, your dad walked out on you and your family. And the reason maybe you became an atheist and maybe you've doubted so much in your life is because you can think there's no way possible that there could be such thing as a good and loving father. And so you've decided to just maybe turn your back on God, or maybe the things that you look at in science and things like that have caused you to believe that there is no God. Maybe you're not atheist, but maybe you got friends in this room or maybe you got friends in your life that are agnostic, which is that they neither believe or disbelieve in God, that they don't really know what they believe. That they don't claim to believe in anything, which is probably what a lot of you guys have friends that are like that. But you see, the reality is that death simply doesn't care about your faith. Death didn't care how good of a kid that Sean was. Death didn't care that my friend Sean had this bright future in front of him. Death didn't care how amazing he was at Call of Duty either. Death simply does not care. Death didn't care that my friend Sean went to parties all the time and he would get drunk on occasion. Death simply didn't care. And the sad thing is, guys, is I don't know if my friend Sean ever had a chance to pray to receive Jesus into his heart. And if he didn't do that, the reality is that he didn't make it to a place called heaven. And man, every once in a while I'll have that thought come up in my head of like, what could I have done differently? What could I have done to change that situation? What could I have done to speak into his life during that time of my life where I was actually with him? What could I have done differently? If you haven't gotten it by now, death doesn't care about your friends. If you're here tonight and you claim to be a Christian and a follower of Jesus, you're the only Bible that some of your friends will ever read. You're the only Jesus that they may ever see. A lot of your friends aren't going to go looking in the book of Mark or Matthew and try to see what Jesus was like. No, they probably don't even have a clue about the Bible. But they're going to look in, the book of, one of you, the book of Hunter. They're going to look in, the book of Isabel. They're going to look in the book of these people's lives, like because these are the people that they are looking to. They don't know Jesus, but they know you. What does your story tell about you? How is the life that you're living? What does that say about you? A lot of us are wasting our lives, guys. And if we aren't showing our friends Jesus, one day death will come knocking at their door. What are we doing to show them Jesus? Because the reality is a lot of us like, man, I just don't really feel comfortable sharing Jesus with my friends. Like, I don't really feel confident enough to do that. Well, you see, the reality is death doesn't care if you feel uncomfortable. Death doesn't care if you think you're really introverted and you don't want to share your faith with other people. Death simply does not care. You may be here tonight and you might be thinking, well, I want to share Jesus with my friends, but I just don't know how. I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know what that means to share Jesus with my friends. And I want to give you 3 things tonight. 3 different things that you and I can do to share Jesus with our friends. Number 1 is this. Is be an example. If you're going around wearing, ladies, if you're going around wearing those skimpy clothes and those outfits that your friends are wearing, why would they want Jesus? If you're drinking the same drinks that they're drinking at those parties, how will they ever know who Jesus is? If you're gossiping about others to them, then you're no different than they are. If you're using the same language that they do, they'll never ever know the truth. If you're participating with making fun of other kids, they'll always think that bullying is okay and it's all right and acceptable. If you like their post on Instagram where they're using terrible language, and you like that post, they'll think that you approve of that and that you're okay with that. Like, oh, well, they're a Christian. Like, they must approve of that. It must be cool. If you're constantly living a life where you're living in sex and doing those kind of things, they're going to think that's okay for them too. Our friends, guys, are looking for hope. And if we have the hope of Jesus living in, if we have hope living inside of us, but our friends never see it, then those friends in your life are just completely hopeless. 1 Timothy 4:12 says this. It says, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity." Don't let people despise you. Don't let people look down on you guys because you're young. But it says set an example in what? Set an example in what? Set an example in speech, meaning how you talk to other people. Are you that person that's like when they say like nasty jokes at school, are you the one that's jumping in, and are you saying those things too? Is the language that's coming out of your mouth, does that say, man, I'm a Christian and I'm a follower of Jesus? We got to set an example in our speech, in the way we talk. Not just the way we talk, but the way we talk about other people too. Are you a person that builds people up all the time? Or are you people that's like constantly tearing other people down through your gossip and through the ways that you talk about other people? We got to set an example in not only speech, but set an example in conduct, which means our behavior, how you act and how you treat your parents. People look at your lives, guys. We got to set an example in that. We don't need to set an example in conduct, but we need to set an example in love. And I'm not just talking about like setting an example in like the way that you date. No, setting an example in what true love is, which is truly laying down your life for other people. Like you love other people so much, and it's a love that Jesus showed us, where He laid down His life for other people. Like, man, I'm going to do everything I can to reach and love other people. We need that kind of love. And lastly, set an example in purity. Like we need to set that example for our friends in purity. Living pure lives. It's like, man, like I really am attracted to this guy. I'm really attracted to this girl. But you've got to say, you know what? That doesn't matter because I care too much about my friends. I care too much about the example that I'm setting for my friends. And I'm willing to lay that aside right now. And I'm willing to wait for God's timing in my life. I'm willing to wait for that right guy in my life. I'm willing to wait for that right girl in my life. I'm willing to wait. We got to set an example in all these things. I'm going to share this with you, and I hate that I even have to share this. But I want you guys to realize how important that you are. I had a parent tell me this. I reach out to a girl. I reach out to someone and they and just see how they're doing, because if you guys aren't here, it bothers me because I consider you guys like my little brothers and sisters. And when you guys aren't here like that, it's like, oh, what's going on? Like, are they okay? And so if I have any contact with you at all, I'm messaging you because I literally care about you that much. But I had the parent tell me hey, sorry they haven't been there in a while, but there's some people in your youth group that they've seen at parties and they see how they act, and they know that they sleep around, do all this stuff, and they don't ever want to come back. Now, to me, it makes me mad because, listen, none of us are perfect. We all mess up. And that's no reason to stop coming here because we're not perfect. But secondly, it makes me mad to think that man, that's the example that my little brothers and sisters are setting for their friends. It makes me mad that that's some of the stuff that's going on, guys. Like that, the way that you are on Sundays is not the way you are on Friday nights. We've got to set an example. It's that important. People look at your life. People care. People are looking to you because they're like, man, they know Jesus, so maybe they have a little bit of hope to offer me. What hope are you offering your friends? Your influence matters. Ladies, your influence matters. My little girls are looking up to you. I want my girls to have good role models. And I know the potential in this room. I've seen it. I've seen it through your lives. And I knew, like, man, there's some really good girls in this group for my little girls to look up to and to follow. I'm really excited about that. Guys, the same way. My little boy Riker loves some of you guys. Like, my little boy don't know who Michael Jordan or LeBron James is, but he knows who Kendall Purdy is. He knows who Landon Harcourt is. He knows who Cody Rothwell and Caleb Dunseth is. These are the people that he looks up to. It's like, man, when he's around you guys, he's like, wow. He's fascinated. I want my son to have good role models and people to look up to. I want my daughters to one day grow up, and the way that they've lived their faith and the way they've lived their life was because they looked at your life and like, man, they did it so I can do it too. The example that we set, guys, matters. Your influence matters. And it's time that we say, you know what? It does matter. And I've got to set a standard. I've got to set a higher standard for my life that I'm not living here anymore, but I'm going to set this new standard in my life like, hey, I'm living up here. I'm going to live to the level that God's calling me to live. We not only need to be an example, but we also need to be persistent. And I say that because a lot of us are like, well, I invited my friends to church, but they said no. And you leave it at that. There were these men in the Bible. They had this friend, and their friend was paralyzed. He was paralyzed, so what they did was they said, you know what, we gotta pick up our friend, because they knew that they heard about Jesus, they heard about all these miracles that Jesus was doing. So what they do, they picked up this man on this mat, their friend, like, hey, we're getting you to Jesus. We're going to go there, and we're going to take you, and he's going to heal you. Like you're going to be able to walk, man. Like you've never walked in your life, and you're going to be able to finally walk. And they carry their friend all the way to Jesus. They carry him to this house. And when they get to the house, do you know what happens when they got to the house? There was a huge crowd surrounding the house, and they couldn't get into the house. And you see, a lot of us would stop right there. A lot of us see any kind of obstacle in the way, and it's like, it's just too hard. And we just give up. There's a lot of people there. Like, yeah, like I was planning on inviting them to Paul's on Sunday night, but the reality is like, they were on the other side of the lunchroom, and I was kind of busy. I got distracted, and it was too busy in there. It was too big of a crowd. A lot of us will stop right there whenever we see an obstacle. We're too tired. I went up to them and I asked them to come, and then they said no. I tried. I put it on my story. We're having Paul's tonight. Like, I tried. I did that. You see, a lot of us in this room think that one attempt is adequate. We think that one attempt is adequate. A lot of us will allow the crowd to deter us from getting our friends to Jesus. But let me just say this. If you knew behind this curtain there was a door back there, and behind that door was $1 million. And I said this, all you got to do is figure out how to unlock that door and get in there, and you get the $1 million. How many of you would just go back there with one key and be like, that doesn't work. Sorry, I got the $1 million. And we'll just walk away? How many of y'all would do that? I would say none of you guys would be doing that, because you guys would be kicking the door, you'd be punching the door, you would be going and getting like whatever you could to try to get like a battering ram to knock that door down, because you knew $1 million was on the other side of that door. Yet a lot of us will not take that type of attempt, because if we realized what's on the other side of that door for our friends is a place called hell, we would wake up to the reality that our friends are dying lost and they're going to hell, and we're doing nothing about it. What will we do if it's like, no, I got to get in there. If I don't do that, they're going to be gone forever. We got to wake up to that reality that our friends are dying without Jesus. We got to be persistent. Anytime there's obstacles, guys, we just stop. And one attempt is not enough. If we know that if they die, they're dying lost without Jesus. It's time that you and I, we quit spending, me included, quit spending hours and hours on our phone when we get home after practice and all that stuff, and we're just wore out from the day, and that's all we want to do is just flip through our phone. Me included, big time. Guilty of that, huge. We got to quit wasting time swiping through our phones and looking through all that stuff, and we need to get down on our hands and knees and cry out to God for our friends. We need to get so serious about our friends and their life and their souls that we begin making huge lists on the back of our door. And every single night, we just shut the door and we get alone with God and we get down on our hands and knees and say, God, please save this person. God, please wake them up that they need you. We need to get so serious about our friends that you're writing it in your journal. Every single morning, every single night, you are praying for your friends. We've got to wake up, guys. It's time we quit doing that. Time we get really serious that we don't stop praying until we get them to Jesus. That it's that important. We got to get serious about it. When they say, hey, like when you say, like, hey, you want to come to Paul's with me? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm busy. I'm tired, whatever. All right, well, I'm going to ask you next week, and I'm going to ask you the week after that, and the week after that, and I'm going to keep asking you, and I'm going to keep bugging you till you come. I'm going to keep loving you, and I'm going to keep showing you Jesus, and eventually, I'm just going to keep doing it, and I'm just going to keep praying. If you keep praying, you know what you do when you pray? God hears your prayers. God can begin to work through other people because of your prayers. Well, we got to get serious about it. Don't give up, guys. Don't quit when your friend tells you no once. Like, all right, pray about it. Pray, God, all right, they didn't come. Like, what am I doing wrong? God, give me the words to say to my friends because obviously I'm not saying the right words to them to help them to come. What do I need to do, God? You know what my Aunt Cora did? My Aunt Cora she died where she was probably late 80s, maybe early 90s. And she prayed for her husband for 65 years. She lived a pretty miserable life with her husband, who was a raging alcoholic, for 60-some years. But you know what she did? She was a faithful wife, and she got down on her hands and knees, and she prayed every single day. And on his deathbed, it took to that point, and he finally accepted Jesus into his heart. Man, because of her prayers, because she didn't give up. We can't give up on our friends. These men did not allow the crowd to prevent them from getting to Jesus. A lot of us see the crowd, we walk away. But you know what they did? They were like, all right, how can we get our friend to Jesus? And there's one friend like, all right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to figure out, we're going to get up on the roof, and I think we can probably, can we take that roof off of that house? Like, it's not our house. We can probably take that roof off, right? They get this man up on the house. They somehow, it doesn't say how they did it. It doesn't tell how they got up there on the roof, and they literally take off the roof and lower their friend down in front of Jesus. We got to become so serious about our friends, and so like we'll do creative stuff to get our friends to Jesus. These men's like, I don't care whose house this is. I don't care what kind of consequences I got to face. I'm going to take the roof off of this house, and I'm going to lower my friends down to Jesus. We got to become that type of serious about Jesus. If they don't come from you inviting them once, what's some creative things that you and I can do to get them there? And lastly is sharing your story. We need to be an example, we need to be persistent, and we need to share our story. One of the best ways that you and I can share our faith is by sharing our story with others. I used to be this type of person, but man, since I met Jesus, He has changed my life. Here's what Jesus has done in my life. I know you struggle with this. I used to struggle with it too. But man, now that I have Jesus in my life, now that I'm going to church faithful, I'm getting stronger in my faith. Like God's really helping me to overcome this stuff. Our friends are looking for hope. A lot of you have the same struggles that your friends are dealing with. A lot of you guys deal with anxiety. A lot of you guys deal with depression the same as your friends deal with it. But you see, the reality is that some of you guys have accepted Jesus in your heart, and because you have him in your heart, you've been able to overcome a lot of that stuff, and you don't deal with it the way that you used to. Sharing your story lets you know that you're not alone. Sharing your story allows others to see that Jesus is real. 1 Peter 3:15 says, but in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for the reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect. A lot of you guys might share your faith with your friends, but the way that you do it might not be gentle, and it might not be with respect. It might be like what you're doing is wrong, and like you're just constantly like you're kind of like mean and angry about it. And man, if you're approaching your friends in that way, like they're not going to want Jesus. We got to wake up the reality that death doesn't care about our friends. Death doesn't care. So what do we do with that? Because death doesn't care about our friends, but I want to end with this. Death doesn't care about your friends, but Jesus does. Jesus cares about your friends. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Maybe you're here tonight and maybe you don't know Jesus. And if you don't know Jesus in this room tonight, death doesn't care. When you don't know Jesus, you're going to a place that wasn't designed for you. Because you're choosing the world and you're choosing that way. And when you do that and when you fall into that, you're going to a place that was prepared for the devil and his angels. It wasn't meant for you and for me. But we got to make that choice, guys. Because death doesn't care. And I know a lot of you, I know you probably heard friends say this, like, man, when I get down to hell, it's going to be nothing but a party. All my friends are going to be there. We're going to get drunk. We're going to get high. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a party. But you know what? That's the total opposite of what hell is going to be like. Hell is going to be eternal torment for an eternity. It's going to be a life, or it's going to be eternity separated from God. There won't be any God there in hell. It's a place where the worm dieth not. It's a place where the maggot dieth not. You know, like a maggot will eat like a flesh and something like that, and it'll die. But this says it's a place where it'll never die. There will be weeping. There will be gnashing of teeth. Just imagine your worst nightmare over and over and over and over and over again. Complete darkness. You don't see anybody around you. There's people crying. There's gnashing of teeth constantly. And you weren't meant to go there. So how do you, like, if you say, well, I've never accepted Jesus in my heart, like, man, like I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. And if that's you, it's like, I've never prayed to receive Jesus in my heart. I've never done that. What does that look like? Well, John 14:6 tells us this. Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He's the only way to heaven, guys. As I said, it doesn't matter how good you are, how perfect you are. If you don't have Jesus in your heart, then you're going to that awful place. There's no other way to come to heaven. Jesus is literally the only way for us and for our friends to get to heaven. When Jesus died on the cross, when he rose again, he said this. He said, I am the living one. I died, but look, I am alive forever and ever. And I hold the keys of death and the grave. You see, death doesn't care about you, but Jesus does. Death doesn't care about your friends, but Jesus does. You say, what does that mean that he conquered death and the grave? That means that Jesus now has authority over death. Jesus now has the keys of hell and the grave. Jesus conquered that. Jesus overcame that. Jesus died and he rose again. And he went away to prepare a place for you and for me. And he's coming back someday, guys. And it says he's coming back in a twinkling of an eye. That could be tonight. We have got to get so serious about our faith Now, we quit playing games, guys. Jesus has authority over all that. Would you guys stand with me? Romans 10, 9 through 10 says this. So if you're here tonight and you say, well, I've never prayed to receive Jesus in my heart. I've got a lot of friends that's never done that. But I particularly, I've never done that. If that's you in this room, here's what the Bible says in Romans 10, 9 through 10. Here's how you accept Jesus into your life and in your heart. It says this, that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you confess and are saved. We got to confess with our mouth. We got to believe that Jesus is Lord in our heart, like truly believe that God raised him from the dead. And you'll be saved. With every head bowed and every eye closed in this place tonight, and you say, man, like, gosh, I don't want any part with that. But man, I want to pray to receive Jesus in my heart tonight. I don't want to walk out of this place knowing that, man, I'm there in that place. Would you just raise your hand and say, yeah, that's me. No one's looking around. Say, yeah, I want to pray to receive Jesus. I see that hand. I see that hand. I see that hand. Anybody else? Just raise them and slip them right back down. Well, if you raise your hand, just repeat after me and just believe this in your heart. And the Bible says if you believe that, you will be saved. You will be saved from that place called hell because you've made that choice in your life and in your heart. Just repeat after me. Say, dear Jesus, thank you for dying for my sins. Everybody repeat that together. Thank you for dying on the cross for me. I believe that you are the Son of God. I believe that you died on the cross for my sins. And I believe that you rose from that grave. Jesus, I pray right now that you would come into my heart and help me to live for you from this day forward. In Jesus' name, amen. And lastly, I want to end with this as the band plays. You probably notice there's a board over here tonight. And I want us to get serious about our friends. I want us to have a constant reminder that there are people in our life that don't have a relationship with Jesus. I want us to get so serious about that. And here's what we're going to do as the band plays. We're just going to play something softly real quick. And man, if you've got friends in your life, like these people in my life, like it could be 1, it could be 10 friends. Don't write it huge on here, but we're just going to write those names on this board. Their first name, don't have to write their last name. But just begin to write their names down there. If you don't have to do that. You can sit in your seat if you would like. There's no pressure to do this. But each week we're going to have a constant reminder in our face. And we're just going to leave that spotlight on every week. And we're going to constantly see that, man, that board's still filled up with a lot of names. And what am I doing about it? And as we begin to see those people's lives transform and see them change, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to have a white out highlighter over there, like a white marker. And when our friends accept Jesus, when we see God move in their life, we're just going to mark that name out and we're going to cover it with white. Because that's what God does. If you've prayed to receive Jesus in your heart tonight, you know what's happened? You're a brand new creature. Old things are passed away. All things are made new. What you've done yesterday or what you did before you came here, that no longer exists in God's eyes. You are a new creation in Him. As the band plays softly, I just want you guys to just take a moment and just think in your heart, man, who in my life needs Jesus? Who are those friends that I go to school with? Who are those friends that I'm close to that I don't know that they've ever received Jesus? We're going to see that week after week. And our hope and our goal is for by the end of Paul's this season, that's going to be a complete whiteboard over there. And we're going to believe God for that. But we're going to go after it this year. We're going to go after our friends. We're going to get serious about our faith. The games are over, guys. We got to get serious about this thing. So as the band plays softly, if you feel led to at any time, just begin to write their name on here. I know that I've got a friend, and I'm just going to go write their name right now. So I'll lead the way in this.